Hello and welcome to Certifiably Jenny. I am Jenny, certifiably, and today in my sewing room I am going to make, drumroll please, a vintage slip. Because on my last video I asked you, was last or the one before that, I asked you all what you would like to see me make on my board. And thank you so much for the response. It was really wonderful. I do appreciate it. And of course, it was a landslide victory for the vintage slip. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I have several modern slips and they don't come long enough. They only come, you can't even see, they only come down to sort of mid-thigh. And most of my skirts are, well, they're always at least knee length and often longer than that. And I bought a little while ago this roll of really lovely white silk. And I got this roll of silk from the kimono store and it's narrow, it's only this wide. And of course modern patterns are cut on the bias because they are designed to be cut on modern fabric, which is obviously a metre and a half or something like that, whereas vintage fabrics were much narrower. And so this slip, let me show you the pattern, that's probably a good first step, isn't it? So as you can see with the grain line, this is cut on grain. And it's a princess seam slip, which means that the panels, I think, are going to be quite narrow. Hopefully I can get these narrow panels on this vintage silk. Let me get it out and I'll show you. So this is the roll of silk that I got at a very good price. You see, it was originally from Joy Kimonos. Oh my God, it's just gorgeous. I mean, it drapes and it's fabulous. But as you can see, it's only that wide. I mean, obviously I've got a whole roll, look. I mean, I've got a whole roll. So I don't know quite how many metres are on here. I think we guessed that it was maybe 11 metres. It's all in Japanese, of course. It doesn't actually say... No, I can't see anywhere that says that I can understand the length of the fabric. But there's a fair amount. But I don't want to cut into this silk straight away. And also my plan is with this silk is to hand stitch it because it's very, very fine. I have tried silks on my machine and it tends to just eat it. So my plan is to do some very sort of mindful hand sewing of some beautiful silk slips. That's not what I'm going to do this weekend. What I'm going to do this weekend is make a mock-up to test the fit on my body because guaranteed this is not going to fit me. Let's put the glasses on, see the dimensions. So what does it say? Well, for a start, I'm a size 16 in this pattern, which is hilarious because if I go shopping in the high street shops, I will be sometimes a size 6, usually a size 8, but a size 10 would drown me. So that's vanity sizing for you, isn't it? Because this vintage pattern this is just my bust size and I'm small up top. And of course in these old patterns, a pattern just had one size in it. So very luckily enough, this is a size 16, which is right for the top. But as usual, of course, there is no way any patterns are going to go over my hips without some serious adjustment. It's a vintage pattern, hole punch pattern, so I'm not going to cut this from the pattern. What I'm going to do, of course, is to transfer the pattern onto butcher's paper, which of course is the paper I usually make my patterns on, and then I can make the adjustments for my hips and all the rest of it. I need to check the waist measurement. So the waist measurement, yeah, we're okay on the waist measurement, so that's good. So the first thing I need to do is explore the pattern, see if all the bits are in there. Might need a bit of an iron just to flatten pieces out because looking in there, no, it's not badly folded. I mean, sometimes with these patterns, people have just sort of scrumpled them up and stuffed them in, but this doesn't look too bad. I have an old linen sheet in that drawer. You know when you get like an old sheet and the middle of it sort of wears thin, but around the outside where it tucks under the mattress, the linen is in good condition. So I'm going to use the linen around the outsides and make a wearable mock-up because of course the linen slip would be lovely. Actually, I have two linen sheets here. This one's not been cut into. This one I used when I made the slip for my 1-hour dress, my 1920s dress that I made for Napier, our Napier trip. So that's already been cut out a little bit. This one hasn't been cut at all, so there's plenty of fabric. I'm going to tip you down. I'm going to try and get a decent angle with you high and tip down. So I'm going to chop my head off. Please ignore that. But what we want to see, of course, is what's in the packet. What does the slip pattern look like? So it's a Butterick pattern, 535, bust 34, size 16. Well, we have the instructions, which is good. Be very delicate with these. Very delicate. It's a little bit discoloured. And it's got a little bit of a hole. Oh, yeah, the fabric is just a little bit fragile through here. I'm not sure what the age of this pattern is, but it's a little, I don't want to damage this paper, but it's sort of ripping through the middles here. So I'm just wondering whether what I might do is take a photograph of this so that when I'm checking the pattern instructions to see construction, I can check my phone rather than getting this out again and again. I think that's what I'm going to do, because I really don't want to damage this any more than it is already damaged. Let's have a look at the pattern pieces and see if we have all of them. That's piece 5. That looks like a bust piece to me. Very much one of the panels. Very narrow. That's looking very hopeful to go on the silk. That's one. That's another one of the long panels. Yep, still fits on the silk. Another skinny pattern piece there. Another skinny pattern piece there. According to the very delicate instructions that we have here, the slip is made up of 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 5. Then there's a number 6 is the ruffle. Number 6 was with the panties. So there is a ruffle piece too. So good news, we have all the pattern pieces. Very excited about that. I am a little concerned about the instructions because they are very fragile through the creases. I'm going to photograph the instructions and then fold it up carefully. That way, when I need to consult the instructions, I can look on my phone. Because I think if any level of folding and unfolding, this thing's going to disintegrate, and I really don't want that to happen. All the pattern pieces look to be in really good shape actually. First thing I'm going to do is iron the pattern pieces because they are really quite crumpled, so it's difficult to get a good impression on the pattern paper. Of course, I will turn my steam off because you don't want any moisture near these pattern pieces. So I won't draw like exactly around it, I'll just sort of almost do dotted lines around it, and then I want to mark all of the holes and little dots and everything on here, and there's little notches as well. I'm not sure what they mean yet, but when I look at the instructions on my phone I'll be able to basically convert those into more modern pattern instructions. So I think some of them are going to be this is going to be the grain through here, there'll be maybe some dots or maybe some matching holes, I would think. Anyway, I'll look in the instructions for that. The other thing putting it on the paper is I know I am going to alter this because it's nowhere near wide enough in the beam, so I'm going to have to extend this. So what I will do is put it on the paper so I've got plenty of room around the outside, so that when I measure it and need to do alterations, I've got room to extend without having to add on paper. Now the other thing I haven't seen is whether this pattern has seam allowance. I'll draw around this first and then I'll do some investigation, because obviously I want my pattern piece to have seam allowance on it and this might not. Failing instructions inside saying that, I can always measure the dimensions of the waist and that will tell me whether it's got seam allowance. I'm actually just going to put some pattern weights on this. Pattern weights, strong word. I'm going to put some heavy things on here so it doesn't move, because I don't want it to shift during my drawing process. What else have I got? Very creative pattern weights here. Chalk, maybe some paintbrushes. Yeah, that'll do it to hold it down, I think, because I don't want it shifting and getting to the other end and finding that it's moved around. Okay, so now I'm just going to go around with my set square and draw it in so I can see it properly. I'm just going to write 2 on this, not that I know what it is yet. Number 2, so I can't write what pattern piece this is. I need to do some investigation for that, because of course on a modern pattern it says skirt back or slip back or whatever it happens to be, whereas on this it's just got number 2, so I'm just putting a 2 for now and I'll fill in the more informative details later. Okay, I'll carry on with this and I'll bring you back once I've got the pattern piece out, and then we need to start doing some measurements and see how it's going to fit on my body. I'm never sure with these projects how it's going to go or even what I'm going to do next, but I'm sort of just going to figure it out as I go along. I know ultimately what I want to end up with. I sort of know what I've got. There's just like the line between the two often is a bit of trial and error. I've checked the pattern. It's 5/8 of an inch. It's 5/8 of an inch. Now luckily I do have an inch tape measure. It's 1.5 centimetres, isn't it? Great. So this pattern has 1.5 centimetres of seam allowance all the way around the outside. Perfect. Okay, so I have drawn up all the pattern pieces from the original pattern pieces. I've marked all the little dots on there, and also I've transferred the numbers that have been on the pattern pieces so I can identify which is which. Now what I'm going to do is go into the instructions on my phone and try and figure out what all the little holes mean, and also what the pattern pieces are, and then I can mark all that in. I can say, oh, this is the side panel, this is the waistline, and put all those modern things on there. Then of course it's just a standard process of grading out for the hips essentially. Okay, so just putting my clothes back on. I have just double checked all of my measurements using my inch tape measure, because this pattern of course is in old money. It's in inches. So I have just double checked and I am sitting quite squarely in the pattern size, which is a size 16 with a bust measurement of 34. I'm a little bit bigger than that, but not a lot, 34.5, maybe 35, so I'm going to go with this pattern. Waist measurement 28, which is the size 16 on the pattern. The hip measurement, mine's actually 39, which brings me to an 18 on the bottom half. So of course the top should fit quite well out of this pattern down to the waist. I've got plenty of seam allowance, so if I need to just ease it out around the bust a little bit, I can do that. So I don't need to make an adjustment to the pattern for that. But definitely for the hips, I'm going to have to change that, because the size 16 hips are 37. So I'm going to add in 2 inches around the 6 pattern pieces. When I've divided that between, there won't be that much. I might convert to centimetres for that, because it's much easier to work in millimetres than these 2/8, 1/6, well, I don't know, I get very confused with that. The other thing, of course, to measure is my length. Invariably, I mean, they always look incredibly tall and slim and elegant on the pattern. I'm not like that, I'm quite short. So probably there's a big chunk on the bottom that I can whip off as well. So I'm just going to measure my, do they have height on here? Yes, finished length, that's good. So I'll be able to make that adjustment. I want mine to come down to just above the knee, because all my skirts and dresses I basically finish on my knee or slightly below my knee. So if I have the slip to just above my knee, that'll be right. Well, I've just measured the length of this slip on me. This is what it looks like in the picture. It's ankle length on me. So I'm going to take a chunk off the bottom, clearly, because it's going to be much, much shorter. So that'll save on fabric and paper. So yeah, I'll make that adjustment too. The other thing I'm not sure about is how much ease is in this slip. So obviously, I mean, I would say this pattern looks to me to be from the 50s at a guess. Maybe the 40s, but in those sorts of times they quite often had sort of undergarments that would be a little bit more sort of like hold you in, like waist cinches or girdles and all those types of things. So they're more likely to be form-fitting, because I think the clothing of that time was really quite sort of close-fitting and tight on the waist and things. I don't mind it being fitted, but I don't want it to be tight. I want to be able to breathe and be comfortable. So I'm actually just going to measure the waist of the pattern pieces just to check it against the size range on the back of the pattern to find out how much ease there is, because I might need to increase the size of things just a little bit for a bit more ease. Oh, it's going to be very complicated, isn't it? I've got 6 pieces. I'm going to measure each piece, take off 3 centimeters off each piece, and then add up all the 6 pieces together. That should give me the overall size circumference of the garment. On the back of the envelope there isn't a this is the size of you and this is the size of the finished garment, which you often get more on modern patterns. It's just this is your size. I could take a bit out on the seams, but I'm trying to make a really good pattern, and with the silk I will want to make French seams, which means that I will need all of the 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. And I'm sure you all know what ease is, but for the people who are just starting out in their sewing journey, the ease is the amount of sort of give and room. So this pinafore I'm wearing, it's got massive amounts of ease because the size of me inside it allows plenty of room between the clothes and me. If this was skin tight, then there would be 0 ease. So it's that little bit of extra room in the clothes to allow your ease of wear and your ease of movement, I suppose. Anyway, let me get on with the measuring and the maths. I did it in centimetres and then converted it into inches to then check on the pattern's going to be complicated, this in the centimetres, millimetres, inches thing. But I have figured out that the waist dimension is 33 inches, which is 5 inches more than the pattern size says. So that's quite roomy around the middle. I'm going to double check the hips and see how that works. Maybe that's got the same level of ease. I might end up with that actually taking it in. We will see. Anyway, on with the maths. I've just done the calculations for the hip, and the pattern as it is actually has a hip dimension of 45 inches. So technically, I don't actually need to increase the size of the hips at all, because obviously it flares out enough that it's not a snug fit round the hips. That will give me, well, 6 inches of extra room. So I might not need to adjust the pattern at all. So I have all my pattern pieces cut out now. They're looking a lot smaller now, I've shortened them. So the next thing is to get out the sheets, take the elastic out of the sheets because they're bottom sheets, give them a bit of an iron, and then I need to pull a thread in them to find the grain, because of course with it being sheets and being washed and worn, they all shift about and move. I always find that to test a pattern properly, you need to do all those details, like try and get the grain right, put it on the grain and all the rest of it, because that's the only way you're going to really see if the pattern is working well, if it fits and all the rest of it. So that's the next job. Always handy to hold on to old sheets. I mean, it's great for mock-ups, it's really good fabric, and of course most of it that goes under the mattress has never been used, and these are good linen sheets, so yeah, get a second life out of them. Okay, it's another day now, the sun is out, which is lovely. I went ahead yesterday evening and cut out all of the fabric pieces, and the next job obviously is to sort of pin it together and sew it up. Now the first things I'm going to do, well, according to the instructions anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is these sort of put the front and the back together, and then of course I can pin it down the side and have a little look at the fit. Obviously I'll need to put in the bust cups as well, but it's really quite a simple construction. Apart from the placket, it just simply says in the instructions, add a placket. But this is a vintage pattern, and I suppose they just think that everybody knows how to put in a placket. There are no instructions. There's nothing to say how to do it. Okay, mystery solved. I've just been looking at this pattern, all over the pattern, all over the instructions, and there is a line at the back which says, 10-inch dress placket zipper for side opening under the notions area. So clearly both of these slips are actually closed with a zip, but it says a placket zipper, which I don't know if that's a specific sort of zip. And then also on the instructions, when I looked very closely, there is one tiny line on the instructions that says, follow the instructions on the zipper packaging. That's it. So, plan B, I am actually not going to put a zip in. It's not going to work for this. It certainly won't work for the silk. I am going to follow the instructions in the 1950s, 1956 book that I have on how to put in a placket with hooks and eyes and poppers. This is my rather lovely old vintage sewing book that I have. It's got some amazing bits and pieces in it. Just gorgeous. It tells you how to sort of make things, draft things from scratch. It's full of so much information, plus it has some beautiful sort of illustrations. But the most important part is that it does actually have information for plackets. Where are the placket instructions? So it has zip fasteners, concealed zip fasteners, and plackets, skirt plackets, dress plackets, all of the information that I need. So that is really handy. Clearly this is where they got the instructions on how to do these types of things. So yeah, going off the pattern already, but yeah, I didn't imagine it would have a zip in a slip. There you go. I've pinned all of the sides together, the two sides to the front, the two sides to the back. I'm going to batch sew them all because it's just so much easier just to zoom down, and then hopefully I should have two pieces. Now I'm not French seaming or anything like that. Of course I will do on the silk version, but this is just a mock-up, so I'm going to zoom along and then I'm obviously just going to run it through my overlocker to tidy those seams. It is going to be a test, and I'm imagining that there will be some adjustment. I mean, one of the things that I'm noting is just like how large these bits are. They seem very large, but anyway, we will see how it works. But yeah, I'm going to batch sew it all, and then hopefully, to be honest, there's not much construction in this. So I've just pinned it to this slip, which is slipping down a little bit. What is clear is that this is massive at the top. I mean, the pattern says it was a 34 bust, but unless it's a 34 bust with somebody with a very large rib cage, that is quite big, but at least it does go over my hips, so it's always easier to take things in. And of course I've got plenty of seams to spread that around. So, quite pleased with that. The bust part does sit nicely around. That's sort of sitting in the right place. It's not that, it's my back, and I do have a very narrow back, but loads of work there. But there's plenty of room in the skirt, which is great. And I like the flare. I like the flare on it. There's plenty of cycling room, plenty of walking room. It fits nicely over the hips. The back does need alteration though. I think we have it a bit better now. It's a little bit snugger. I've taken a little bit in by the sides and a little bit in at the back, mainly the back actually, because that's sort of where the gaping was. Excuse the socks, it's a very nice look, isn't it? So I think we're sort of there on the fitting. So I'm going to zoom that up, and do I need to think about the placket then? Not sure of the next step. I'll look at the instructions, hey. Okay, so it's the end of the day, and I thought before I packed up, I just wanted to move across the alterations that I've made on this wearable toile onto the pattern pieces while it's still fresh in my head. So I've sort of measured and worked it all out and moved it over onto the pattern pieces, trimmed, and hopefully those now are the size that the toile is. With the toile, the next thing I need to do is I'm going to try it on again one more time tomorrow morning, and then I will overlock all the extra seam allowances on, because some of those seams have been unpicked and resewn and unpicked and resewn about 4 times now. I think we're good for this evening. I think it's a good point to stop, because if I start carrying on now, it's going to be too late and I'll make a mistake, and I don't want to do that. So I'll see you tomorrow. I'm really not sure what to do, because looking at the vintage pattern, they literally just have like the raw edges turned in. There's no sort of seam finishing or anything. On the version where they have lace at the top and it's gathered, they've actually used bias binding on the lace part, because presumably that wouldn't work just turned in. But none of it's very satisfactory, I don't think. None of it makes my heart sing. None of it is really what I want to do, even though it is only a toile. It is not, I mean, I will wear it. It's a wearable toile, but yeah. Am I a perfectionist? Probably, but I can't, raw edges. And then especially in the linen, it's just going to fray. So I'm going to have to just scratch my head a little bit and see if I can figure out a better way of doing it. I do have some white bias binding from the charity shop, $2, which would do the job. I think the next thing to do is the placket, because I have all that done and overlocked, but of course if I put the edge round, the edge will actually interact with the bit where the placket is. And at the moment I haven't finished the seam. I've just left it raw. I haven't overlocked it like the other ones. I've just sort of left the 1.5 seam allowance and it's all raw, because I didn't want to trim anything off that I might need later. So the next thing is to get out my book and figure out how this placket will work. So placket, placket, placket. There's some beautiful things in this book. Beautiful sort of decorative things as well. I mean, look at this. Beautiful. That's braid and embroidery and getting all absorbed by the book. And now I need to stay on target, which is finding the placket. I mean, this is an extensive placket section. Plackets and opening. We've got skirt plackets, we've got zip plackets, continuous zip fastening plackets. And somewhere, I believe, here we go, dress plackets, which is what I'm going to use on this slip, because it's a 1-length garment. Now, do I do a faced placket or a continuous placket? I think I'll do a faced placket, actually. It looks simpler. There's a bit of terminology in here, which I'm not really sure, because it says buttonhole ends, 2 seam turnings. Sew on hook and eye at waist and snap fasteners at even distance above and below waist. But I don't really know what buttonhole ends are. It says it here. Maybe it's just tack it in place, neaten it up. I'll make it up, as I always do. I'm actually going to cheat, because it's just occurred to me that I do have quite a large amount of seam allowance here, and so I figure if I just turn one side under and under again, that can be the, I don't know if you can see that. If I turn this side under and then under again, that would be the sort of the underlap, and then on this side I could just turn it once, overlock this top edge, turn it once, and then put some bias over the top, and then this would actually cover over the other side, which would sort of be a little placket, rather than all of these instructions. It's like cut something 3 inches wide, and it's like that's a lot for a slip, I think. So I think I'm just going to fudge it and make it up. I've got the concept, I've got the vibe of the thing. Well, there's good news and there's bad news. As a concept, it works brilliantly, I think. It's overlapping, there's a neat bit of bias on the inside. Works a treat. The bad news is I've put it on the wrong side, so that the overlapping bit is from the back, and it should be the other way around. So proof of concept, but I'm going to unpick it and put it the right way around. I think I might stop now because I need to walk Maggie, and I've lost the joy. Nothing. So I'm going to go and walk Maggie. I'll come back, unpick it and have another go after a bit of a breathe. I've been through my charity shop stash. I have found some little tiny hooks and eyes and some quite small press studs. They are of course silver, but better than black. I've only got black and silver, so those hopefully should do the job, but I'm not going to do that now. It's my husband's birthday and he's just pouring some wine, so I am going to leave that for now and come back to it. But the placket, the placket, which I had no idea how to make work, I think is now sorted. And the idea, I think, is that we put a hook, an eye at the waist, and then a couple of poppers either side, both to hold the hook and eye sort of in its place, but also just to close up the other places, because of course hooks and eyes take strain but aren't very good. If they relax, they can come unhooked. Poppers hold things in place, but of course aren't that good with strain. So a combination of the two, a hook and eye at the waist and then poppers either side, actually will hold the placket closed. Now on the bottom, it's a bit boring because it's just the end of the slip. So in the image, there is one of the petticoats actually has a ruffle, and there is a pattern piece actually in the packet for a ruffle. So I'm toying with actually, I've got plenty of sheet, so I'm toying with actually making a ruffle just to sort of give it a little bit of va-va-voom at the bottom. Anyway, glass of wine time. So it's another weekend now. I was trying to get this finished last weekend and I didn't manage it. So my daughter's coming over this weekend, so I really want to get this frill done so that she can pin it on in the right position and make sure that the length of the skirt is correct. So I do need to cut out this frill. I may leave the other bits for another weekend, but that won't concern you because this one video will have all the bits in all neatly put together. But I thought I'll do this frill so she can do the hemming, and then I might storm on with another project because obviously I have the weekend. And when I have little bits to do, I can often I just fit them in the evenings. I'll pop in and do a little bit. The other thing I have done is I have pinned the straps. So obviously very boring, but I'm just going to zoom down that, down the side, turn it through. It'll be quite a narrow little strap, which I think will be quite pretty. So zoom all down that, pull that through, and then I'm going to put that into the slip before I stitch on the bias binding. So I have pinned on the bias binding, as you can see, but I want to catch the straps in the bias binding before I turn it over. Actually, it might also help if I get the straps done so that she can help me get the straps in the right position as well. So I'll do those two things for her visit, I think. I have put a very narrow hem along the edge of the bottom, and I have put a gathering stitch through the top. I'm just going to press that down, pull all the gathers, even them out a little bit to the sort of the dimensions of the petticoat, and then my daughter can pin it on when she comes, which is great. I have stitched the strap now. Now it just becomes the tricky bit of turning it through with a faff. I've got a safety pin, very, very fiddly. Very fiddly. Takes a long time. We're not far away. I did try it on and it looks really cute, so I'm so pleased. We've still got to put the little bits of lace on and make it look all pretty. We're on the final stretch. Put on the frill, so I'm really pleased with that. I think that looks quite pretty. I'll just get this lace on, and then the next bit will be the reveal, although I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this. I mean, it's quite covering, and I've got some sort of nude underwear, so details. I'll figure it out. Do not worry, I will not flash you. It will be fine. And I do also have a slip that I could wear underneath it if it is a little bit see-through, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll all be okay.